Bringing you analysis and insight into the Crimson Tide, your Crimson Cover hosts, John Copeland, Mike Parker, and Chase Goodbread. Sponsored by Alabama Credit Union. And now, Crimson Cover.
Welcome to Crimson Cover Television on WVUA. I'm Chase Goodbread of NFL.com, along with Big John Copeland of the 1992 Alabama National Championship Team recruiting analyst Mike Parker. Along, as always, we've got a huge show for you tonight, as we always do. We're going to be previewing the Alabama game against Arkansas this weekend. Alabama continues with a home game through the SEC schedule. We'll be recapping the Crimson Tide's blowout win on the road in Athens over the Georgia Bulldogs, 38-10. We're going to go around the SEC with some interesting news around the league in both divisions. We're also going to have, as always, our picks segment as we move on in Week 6. We've got some stakes finally for the picks. We'll get to that at the end of the show as well. But first, fellas, previewing Alabama's home game against the Arkansas Razorbacks. We're going to start with a look at the Alabama defense against the Arkansas offense. And Mike, this Razorbacks offensive line is reputed to be not only the biggest in college football, but the biggest in football, period. Bigger than any line, even in the NFL, supposedly, averaging, I think, 315, 320 plus across. Just a monster group of 5 offensive linemen. What do you see shaping up with that battle on the line of scrimmage when Arkansas has the ball?
Well, I have a little bit different take than I think most people. Everybody thinks that Arkansas is going to come in here and do what they do and try to run the football up the gut. And I do like the big fatties for Arkansas. They're tough. They get off the ball, and it's an excellent offensive line. But when I look at, if I'm Brent Bielema, how do I win against Alabama? Not compete. How do I win? You're just not, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to be able to beat Alabama pounding the football up the gut. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I think for Arkansas to have any chance of beating Alabama, Brandon Allen is going to have to throw the ball downfield. He's going to have to throw it 40-plus times because it's just not fair what Alabama has. You can look at the defensive line, and literally there's about 7 people I can guarantee you'll play in the NFL. DJ Petway, pro. A'Shawn Robinson, pro. Dalvin Tomlinson, pro. Jonathan Allen, pro. Jaron Reed, pro. Deshaun Hand, pro. Daron Payne, pro. Joshua Frazier, Darren Lake, put them in there. It's unfair. There's no way that you're going to beat Alabama running the football up the gut. It's not going to happen.
I think Parker may be on to something. But as a football team, you do what you do. If you're built to run the football inside the tackles, then you do that. What you do to win the football game is tweak that a little bit. Maybe run the ball when they don't think you're going to run the ball. Put the quarterback in a situation where he can pass the ball when they think you're not going to pass the football. You tweak it, but I don't think you totally get away from what you do as a football program.
Arkansas, of course, has one of the best running backs in the SEC in Alex Collins. I believe he's a junior, an outstanding player, a 1,000-yard rusher behind a massive offensive line. John, the way I see this, from an offensive line standpoint, I think Arkansas is a little bit better than Georgia was. But from a running back standpoint, Nick Chubb's a better football player than Alex Collins. But if you're better up front, sometimes that's all the difference that needs to be made. I understand Alabama's run defense is phenomenal.
And for them to win the football game, I think they're going to have to be able to run the football. If they can't run the football, then they're not going to win. If Alabama know that they're going to pass the football, then they're going to get in defenses that prevent that. You have to be able to run the football when you want to run the football. The key to this game for Arkansas is to keep the Alabama defense off balance. If they can do that, they have a chance. But like Mike said, this is a phenomenal front seven. Probably the best in college football, if not the best Alabama have ever had. So they're going to have to be a little tricky in what they do. They just can't come out and try to smash them off the team because that's not going to happen. You have to be really creative, but I don't think we shouldn't count them out because I think they got a really good group of kids.
I like the team too, and I'll add one more thing. They have probably, in my opinion, one of the best tight ends in the country in Hunter Henry, and he's a weapon, and they're going to use him downfield.
Special player for sure. Razorbacks coach Brett Bielema had some comments earlier this week on the depth of that Alabama defensive line that Mike just referenced. Here's what Bielema had to say.
I think they have a defensive front that's comparable only to the NFL. I mean, they have, I think at one point somebody's told me that they've played 12 interior defensive linemen, which is, they all look the same. I swear there's a little machine that just creates them, and they all walk outside. They all look the same and play the same, unfortunately.
A machine. Bielema thinks there's a machine Nick Saban has in the bowels of Bryant-Denny Stadium, just creating these defensive line robots that all look the same, all play the same. And in a lot of ways, it seems like he's right in a lot of ways when you watch this rotation. And you're going to see guys be able to rotate against Arkansas more than you see them rotate against the spread teams, the Ole Miss teams that hurry up. Arkansas' style of offense, being that it's not a hurry up, is going to allow, John, Alabama's defensive line to rotate in and out.
Let me tell you something. And I'm going to tell you exactly what Bielema is doing. He is doing exactly what a coach should do. He is praising the opponent. He's making them feel like they're the best thing since pockets. He's making them think they can't be beat. But behind closed doors, when he's talking to his football team, he is saying something totally different. Trust me, he's trying not to be bulletin board material, but when he's talking to his team, he's not saying they're machines. He's not saying they can't be beat. He's saying, and he's doing exactly what he should be doing.
All right, John, the Alabama offense against the Arkansas defense. Let's break that matchup down really quick. Jake Coker coming off his best performance of the season on the road at Georgia. You wouldn't have expected Coker's best game of the year to come on the road in a tough SEC game, but that's and in the rain, that's exactly what happened.
And as an Alabama football coach, that's exactly what you want. You're going into a hostile environment. You're coming off of Salt Park a couple of games, and this kid stepped up to the plate, and I think he's putting himself in a position to lead this football team. I think his team is starting to believe in him. I think he's gaining a little more confidence, and he's doing it at the right time.
Arkansas defensive lineman DeMarcus Hodge, one of the top defensive linemen in the SEC, kind of a guy that would probably fit pretty well on Alabama's defensive line. But this Arkansas defense lost a lot of guys from last year. Lost Martrell Spade at linebacker, lost Tevin Mitchell at cornerback, lost Darius Filine, a Mobile kid, off the defensive line, lost Trey Flowers, who I believe was a third-round draft pick back in May. So a lot of new faces on that Razorbacks defense.
Yeah, they play hard, but they're just not that, talented and experienced. I think they're going to get exposed in the back end. I think our wide receivers, although, they've struggled at times, I think match up really well with their defensive backs. I think we can expose them.
All right, that's going to do it for this segment on Crimson Cover. When we come back, we're going to recap Alabama's big win over the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens last weekend. That and plenty more coming on Crimson Cover. You're watching WVUA, Alabama's home team.